Hi, everybody, and welcome to another installment of Align's Daily Dose of Advice, our way of bringing you valuable insights and thought leadership from business experts from around the world on various topics that will hopefully help you and your business. As always, my name is Eugene Turk. I'm the Vice President of Business Development at Align. You can learn more about Align at aligntoday.com. And my guest today is Ted Bonel. Ted is a strategic advisor and coach to CEOs and executive teams across Australia. He is driven by a passion for learning and helping business leaders develop and execute strategy to deliver profitable, sustainable growth. He provides organizations and their leaders with facilitation support and executive education, which is focused specifically on strategy development and strategy execution. And he is also a certified scaling up coach. Ted, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Given your particular expertise and passion for strategic planning, I thought we could discuss some best practices for what companies should be doing right now in light of the COVID-19 crisis. So from your perspective and what you might be talking about to your coaching clients, or what you might be hearing from your coaching clients, what are some of the things that they are doing right now with regard to short-term strategic planning, say for the next 7 days, the next 2 or 3 weeks, and the next month, 2 months, 3 months?
Okay. So working with clients over the last 3 to 4 weeks with this COVID-19, probably the themes coming out is go lean. Let's start to embrace lean. Let's start to, I suppose, right size our business. So scaling it to suit what's going on. And that may mean, and I know this is a general audience worldwide, that may mean some businesses may have to hibernate during this period. And the other key thing is to access available funds. Draw down your lines of credit if possible, as soon as possible. Don't be the last to do that, because there's no pot of gold in terms of, there's no quantum there that's going to exist. There's going to be a finite amount. So whatever you can do, draw down lines of credit that you can, because we don't know how long this is going to go for. We don't know what the end's going to look like.
And so please go ahead.
The other thing is understand and access all these this available assistance, whether it's federal, state, in the US, the SBA, banks, landlords. Talk to your landlords about rent relief, your suppliers. And what I suggest is allocate a person specifically to do that, so they can become the experts. They can drill down on everything that's available. And for some, simply staying calm and carrying on will be the optimal approach. So there's a lot of, in terms of strategies here for different types of businesses.
And so for those companies that are unfortunately unable to simply hibernate or sort of weather the storm by just hunkering down, what are the factors that those companies, the other companies, should be considering when they're evaluating a pivot, a strategic pivot in their product or their service offerings for the short term?
Well, and this probably comes back to, in terms of, so what's the planning horizon that we should be looking at? And I would suggest that we should be looking at, what do you need to do this week? What do we need to do the next 2 to 4 weeks? And probably the 1 or 2 quarters. But then start to look at scenario planning. So what if your revenue goes down 30%? What if it goes down 50%? What if it's 0? What are some actions that you can actually take? And put some trigger points in place. So if you worked out it goes to 30%, we need to right size our business through people, or what we're doing, or accessing funds. What's our cash runway? How far can we survive? And if it goes down 35, if that's the trigger is 30, what are we going to do different then? So put those early warning indicators or tripwires in place for your moves. That's important, because just don't hope. And generally I start off with clients with what we call the Stockdale paradox that Jim Collins made famous, which is we need to have brutal honesty about the facts of the current reality, but at the same time be optimistic about the future. So confront the brutal facts in terms of what's really happening now. Don't have false hope here, because false hope, what James Stockdale from the Stockdale paradox, he was the prisoner of war at the Hanoi Hilton. He was there for 7 years. He was tortured over 20 times. And he was asked in terms of, so who didn't survive? The people that didn't survive incarceration were the optimists. So he confronted the brutal facts. And as a leader, he kept his team motivated, accepting the brutal facts, but being optimistic in terms of there is an end and the end is bright. Whenever we come out of this, the future is going to be bright, but it's going to be a new normal, and we don't know what the new normal is going to look like. This is a constantly moving thing. Every day changes. We need to be agile. So another theme is we need to be agile. So for us to be agile, if we take on board the execution disciplines from scaling up, which is priorities, metrics, meeting rhythms, we need to probably look at our meeting cadence and meet more regularly, because things are changing rapidly and we need to adjust rapidly, test, and keep adjusting until we get it right.
You mentioned sort of the uncertainty about when we will sort of exit from this, when this will be over. And so in terms of strategic planning, what should most companies be doing in terms of planning to prepare for the day that most businesses and your customers return to work or return to you and are ready to start buying your product and service offerings again?
Okay. My belief is it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be a ramp up. But where I believe the opportunity is for businesses is that as we, and most businesses are right sizing, which is reducing their workforce, and some down to perhaps zero because of the industry that they're in. As businesses, we should be moving our B and C players on, making sure that we keep our core team so that we can actually scale up. But at the same time, let's be on the lookout there for A players, or start to build a bench, because there's going to be A players out there. So when it is ready, when the time comes that we have to ramp up, we've got a bench of A players that we can get on quickly. That's where I think the opportunity is going to be, is in terms of getting good people, because they're out there and they are being let go in many industries.
Mm-hmm. What about for companies that started this year with an annual strategic plan? Um, should those companies sort of throw that plan out the window? How do you, what are you telling your clients with regard to the targets, the priorities that they set for themselves back in December or maybe early January for 2020? How should they be reevaluating those annual strategic plans at this stage?
Really good question. That's really where we should be starting at, because when we did those annual plannings, or last quarter starting in January, we need to go back and have a look what we call the current state, and which is in terms of, so what were those financial assumptions? What were those initiatives that we said that we would be doing? And we need to start to address which ones of those are correct, which ones are wrong in this climate now, and which ones we are unsure about. And we just need to start to peel back on that.
Mm-hmm.
And then from that comes the scenario planning in terms of, so what if our revenues, maybe they remain static for some businesses, and maybe some businesses are going to do really well out of this, but what if our revenues drop 30%? What if they drop 50%? What if it's zero? What's our cash runway? What's our available lines of credit? What assistance can we actually tap into in terms of federal, state? How do we need to pivot? Because out of this a theme should be about surviving, but also thriving when we come out of this, setting
Right.
ourselves up well. And
Yep.
if you embrace that Stockdale principle, I think we'll be doing that.
Okay. Um, Ted, the question that I ask everyone that comes on Align's daily dose of advice doesn't have to be related to strategy, but what is the number one piece of advice that you're giving your coaching clients right now?
So Eugene, so before that, probably one thing in terms, so people talk about in strategy, so far it's all about sticking to your core. And I think in this, what we're facing now in our challenging environment now, I think that needs to be parked. So some companies probably need to pivot. So for pivoting, working with clients, we need to understand where's the money, and we need to explore new value propositions.
Mm-hmm.
And be careful about discounting, because the zero-sum game of discounting, and it's hard to come back from that. And what I find with value propositions, try and give more value, and then focus on high payoff activities. And if we can understand our customers better and understand their issues and solve their issues, that's where we need to pivot. And I believe in terms of what's happening now in our discussion just beforehand, the new normal is going to be going digital. So if you have to spend money on going digital. And that's whether it's video or in terms of making it easier for your customers to order online. And if we have to hibernate, let's stop selling and be that resource for our organizations. I mean, just some really quick examples in terms of, when you look at McDonald's, whether that's happening in the States, McDonald's in Australia, a little bit of a pivot. Obviously, all they can do is take away or drive through. So what they're starting to do is actually selling eggs, bread, and milk. That's McDonald's. Who would have thought? There was another one that, another client in terms of in metal manufacturing, his sales almost went down to zero. But where the demand, follow the money, where the money is, because people are now working at home,
Mm-hmm.
he started to build gyms and gym equipment, etc.
Oh,
And he'd run off his feet because you can't get that because most of that's important. So there's a limited amount. So you go anywhere, you can't get gym equipment. So he's flat out. Just before Easter, he was working till 9 o'clock at night just to fulfill some orders before Easter. So simple stuff. We need to follow the money.
you make it sound so easy. Just follow the money.
Where's the money going? As I say, follow the puck. So coming back to your question, Eugene, about what's that one thing? And I suppose the one thing here, we always talk about strategy, but I think the key thing here is your role as leaders is, and I would suggest probably most of you are probably working remotely with your team, set yourself a daily routine. Yeah, wake up time, bedtime, when you have exercise, yoga or meditation. Make sure you replenish yourself physically, your physical self, your mental self, your emotional self, because you as a leader, you need to be that role model. You need to be that James Stockdale. You need to surround yourself with people who can bounce ideas off, that you can trust to be independent. Because by yourself as a leader, and my background is as a CEO of a fast growth company. So if you're only working by yourself and taking your advice from yourself, that's suboptimal. Involve key people, key advisors, independent people that you can trust, that you can bounce those ideas off, that will give you that guidance so that you can make the best decision. That's
Right.
probably my advice, is be that read, because people are looking at you. Make sure that you're positive about the future, but also confront the brutal facts.
And don't think that you have to do this by yourself.
Absolutely.
Right. Ted, it's always a pleasure to see you, to speak with you. I appreciate you joining us and for sharing some of your thoughts and advice. If anybody would like to learn more about Ted, you can do so by checking out his website at strategyandexecution.com.au for Australia. If you'd like to learn more about Align, as always, our website is aligntoday.com. And we hope you will join us next time for another daily dose of advice. Till then, thanks so much, and I hope you make it a great day.
Thank you, Eugene.